Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Zwiftcast, the community podcast from Zwift. I'm your host, Rebecca Charlton, and I'm excited to be back alongside Dave Towle after having a baby 2 weeks ago. And we've got loads of lovely stuff in store for you today. Coming up on the Zwiftcast. We've got news and updates galore, including the fact that the much anticipated TrainerRoad integration is finally here. And Sir Chris Hoy launches Tour de Four. Nathan, Shane and Eric are back to discuss all the latest, including that Peak Zwift result. And we meet Elaine Montoya to learn all about the owls, the older women in Lycra. All this and more to discuss, but first it's that time again when we see the return of Zwift Academy. Now you can follow along with all the action this year as it unfurls over on GCN, and episode 1 is out right now. It's brilliant and I love the humour that Dan Lloyd and Simon Richardson bring as hosts, but there's also, of course, a very serious competition at play. Let's have a taste now to whet your appetite.
Zwift Academy is back.
I think I can win.
If I didn't think I could win, I would not be here.
Zwift Academy Finals is the climax of a global talent search for 2 new pro cyclists.
Over 100,000 cyclists from all over the world entered the Zwift Academy, and only the very best have been selected for the finals.
I can't believe I'm like 18 years old. I've never been to Europe.
Zwift Academy is a unique opportunity, but there is only one winner.
Dave, we've both been really invested in the Academy from day one, and it's evolved so much over the years. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the first episode shows just how much this means to the riders. And I loved the excitement of them getting their kit and seeing the team cars for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it really encapsulates the dream of being a pro cyclist. I thought, Rebecca, I heard something like 100,000 people started in the process as they began willing it down. And then you look at that group of men and women. And I thought to myself a few things, you look around and you think about how much it took to get here. And then how strong are these monsters now that I still have to better to get this contract? So it really puts in perspective how much this dream means for people. There really is an incredible amount of talent, obviously, around the globe, but a very limited amount of opportunity, especially in a sport like pro cycling. I mean, there is so much equipment and travel and support, and you can see why soccer or football is the world's number one sport. All it takes is flat ground and a ball, right? And you can play. But with cycling, you need so much more. And so to get everything to line up in your life, it's really, really incredible to see how much this means to the athletes. And you're right. I mean, I go all the way back to the first time we did this and felt incredibly engaged. And, the other thing, Rebecca, you could probably relate to is it's one thing to have the dream, but be careful what you ask for too. Because becoming a pro cyclist is maybe the hardest job on the planet. The astronaut or pro cyclist, I think, maybe the 2 hardest jobs on the planet. And you better be ready for this lifestyle and the commitment. And I mean, if you've made it into this Zwift Academy this far, you're ready. But now it's going to be, does your personality fit well? And the fact that bike racing is so much more than an exercise contest too. It's simple to think, it's bike handling skills. Well, it is that, but it's much more than that too. It's your ability to work in a group under pressure. So many different things that it's cool to watch them in the Zwift Academy have this condensed amount of time to try to figure out whether you're cut out for it or not. And I have to laugh. Final point on that, Rebecca. If I had been a kid and made it into the Zwift Academy, I would have realized very quickly that this lifestyle is something that I'm not cut out for.
I can't wait to see where it goes next. And a reminder that you can watch episode 1 right now over on GCN with new episodes on the 22nd of February and the 1st of March, culminating in the grand final on March 8th, when this year's winner will be revealed. Well, there was news at the time of us recording that Ruvi has added virtual shifting to its platform using Zwift hardware. Well, we turned back to GP Llama on this topic. Here's a word now from Shane.
When I heard the news Ruvi was going to be supporting Zwift hardware, I was really keen to cover all the technical details. I've got all the hardware here, and by all the hardware, I really do mean all the hardware, including about 10 smart trainers that I can see behind me here in the Llama Lab that are under review. And my viewers are exactly who Ruvi will want to target with this news. Now, unfortunately, Ruvi chose not to reply to my technical questions. They came back with, could you please update the app and test it out, with a smiley face. That's all I got, no technical detail whatsoever, all while giving other media all the details and early access. Anyhow, that aside, in a nutshell, virtual shifting with some Zwift hardware is now supported within Ruvi. Now, they're not the first third party to support Zwift hardware for virtual shifting. They are, however, the first multi-million-dollar company to do so. Now, further on this, without any cooperation whatsoever from Zwift, they have reverse-engineered Zwift protocol and implemented support for it within their virtual cycling software, meaning they now support a subset of Zwift hardware, those being the Click and the Ride controllers, when used with a Zwift-ready smart trainer that also supports Zwift protocol. Now, that's hardware that Zwift have developed themselves and trainers with firmware that Zwift has worked with industry partners to ensure compatibility within Zwift, those being Wahoo, Elite, Jet Black, Van Rysel, etc. Now, in an attempt to democratize the market, that's the words I've got from Ruvi, and to help convince Zwift to open the protocol, again in their words, they've simply hijacked something they had no part in developing and put it into their product. Look, if it gets more people riding bikes and more people being more active, to me, that's a good thing. I just don't think the way they've gone about this is the correct pathway for Ruvi to achieve their goals. Now, I do believe Ruvi have chosen to place too much risk in the hands of their own paying subscribers. Now, in hijacking the Zwift hardware for their own platform, Ruvi can't guarantee ongoing compatibility or any support whatsoever for the Zwift hardware they're now supporting. So it's a little confusing there. Look, let's say there's an underlying change to the Bluetooth protocol at either the system level or maybe on the peripherals themselves. Without a partnership in place between the software and hardware companies, things could break. In fact, in rolling out unofficial support for Zwift-ready smart trainers last week, as a part of this virtual shifting implementation, Ruvi have currently broken their platform for people with the Elite Dorado XR trainers and some Wahoo trainers. Now, these are Ruvi users who may not even want virtual shifting, but they've been caught up in this. So, were Elite aware of this update to Ruvi? Were Wahoo? Now, whose responsibility is it to fix those trainers with the Ruvi platform? Are Elite and Wahoo having to help Ruvi debug the Zwift protocol that they've reverse engineered? Now, we're not even a week into the support rolling out on Ruvi, and it's a mess for some users. Why didn't Ruvi simply create their own hardware or their own protocol or work with the industry, or at least try to have the community help with this support they needed to get Zwift to license or open their protocol? I don't know. Look, I just don't agree with the way they've chosen to execute this. In many ways, it'll have the opposite effect of what they're trying to achieve, and that is to open the protocol, more options for more people. This could lock things down, make Zwift charge more for their hardware, and leave users out in the cold when things don't work. Look, what if Zwift were to reverse engineer Ruvi? Let's put the shoe on the other foot. Maybe put Ruvi's real-life videos in Climb Portal without any input from Ruvi at all. No licensing, nothing. Just take their product and put it in-game. That wouldn't really go down well, would it? Well, this is exactly the same as that, just at a different level. Anyhow, I'll leave it there. Look, in saying that, I fully support open standards. I fully support more choice for consumers and even more competition in the market. Just not like this.
We reached out to Zwift and there's no official word as of yet from the HQ, so watch this space on that. But they did confirm it's not an official partnership and Zwift hardware has only been tested and developed to work with Zwift.
Right on!
In even more news this fortnight, eagle-eyed Zwifters will have noticed the buzz around Zwift and TrainerRoad officially teaming up. Nick Kalkounis, Zwift's Director of Product Management, joins us now to tell us more. Nick, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the Zwiftcast. And for the non-aficionados out there, why is this such a big deal and why have Zwift done it right now?
Yeah, I mean, for years, I think cyclists have really had to choose between doing their structured workouts in TrainerRoad, in the apps and experiences that TrainerRoad had or have, and something more immersive like what we have in Zwift. And with this integration, I think that choice is no longer necessary, right? TrainerRoad and Zwift, or us, have really worked together to finally deliver the best of both worlds.
What are the special technical challenges that you've seen, Nick, with Zwift and TrainerRoad? The synergy, it's awesome, but it can't be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest thing that we've had to, biggest change that we've had to make was an experience that TrainerRoad has that feeds into their AI analysis of the workouts, and that's the survey that they do after you complete a workout. And so, as part of that, we wanted to bring that entire experience into Zwift, which meant that we had to build out some of that experience post workout. So at the end of a TrainerRoad workout, users will see an RPE or perceived rate of exertion survey that then they select a value between 1 and 10, and then we send that to TrainerRoad. TrainerRoad then uses that to reconcile the workout and then determine if the next workout needs to be the same or harder, whatever their algorithm does to optimize that.
Can you tell us a bit about the response? I know you'll be delighted to see how big it's been, and people are truly invested in this. People are so happy it's happened.
Yeah, the sentiment has been very positive, from all our different channels, looking at our Zwift forums and, some of the TrainerRoad forums and the Zwift Insider site. I mean, it's been great all around. I think people are super excited. I received a one-off sort of comment from, or a message actually from a friend of mine who was both a TrainerRoad user and Zwift, and he said, "Oh, I could finally throw away that Ant dongle that I had attached to my laptop that was just for this, right? Because they were running both at the same time." So, I mean, I think that was one of the things that a lot of customers did, is they would actually run both experiences separately.
So it creates a huge secondary dongle market now. So another real upside out of this whole thing. What was the mindset shift? Was it at TrainerRoad? Was it at Zwift? It seems like this so greatly benefits both of your customers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, we started this off. So TrainerRoad is not, hasn't been the first integration, right? We started this off last year. I think it was in July or August. I can't remember the exact date, but the first partner was TriDot, where we built out this integration. And since that time, we've obviously improved the experience. We've optimized how much easier it is for partners to build, and we now have 7 partners that have integrated through, from Exert and Best Bike Split, a bunch of others. It's just been great. And basically it's, we know that cyclists like to train with different platforms, and giving them the choice to, still leverage those platforms, but in the place where, Zwift is the destination for cyclists, or one of the largest destination for cyclists. And so giving them the ability to execute those workouts in an environment where they have their friends, their other social groups, I think has been great. And that's been one of the reasons that we've really invested in this experience and want to make it better for all our partners.
Well, Nick, I've heard serious training made fun, and that certainly seems to be what we're doing here. When you look at TrainerRoad and the integration for folks, I mean, almost everybody listening is riding on Zwift already. How does it all work?
Yeah, Dave, it's actually super simple. So if you're not already a TrainerRoad user, you can go to TrainerRoad and sign up. And in the there's 2 areas. Actually, one is in the auto sync settings or the connection settings in TrainerRoad. You'll now see a Zwift Connect button. You hit the Connect button, you sign in with your Zwift credentials, and that's it.
Sounds like it's not that different than hooking up your Strava, Rebecca, which every time I finish a ride, I love getting that alert. So it's time to take it to another level.
Oh, completely, Dave. And Nick, it sounds like it is just super user-friendly in every sense.
Yeah, that's right. So after your account is connected, your TrainerRoad workouts will automatically sync to Zwift. You'll see them in the For You row in the game. And you basically just select it like you would any other workout or route or group activity in Zwift. And after you complete the workout, that'll sync all back to TrainerRoad where they reconcile. And
well, Nick, you're a man of the moment, man in demand, so we'll let you go. But thank you so much for the insight.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on.
Ride on.
Dave, you caught up with the crew, aka Shane, Nathan and Eric. Let's get their take on all the Zwift latest, including Peak Zwift, as well as their thoughts on that TrainerRoad integration. Here they are now.
All right, to remind us all, we did have our sweepstakes. Rebecca did a great job of kicking that off, and we had all of our experts here. That's Shane Miller, also known as GP Llama, Eric Schlange, and Nathan Guerra, all joining us from around the globe. Guys, you did a good job. No one was really that far off, except for a former host. We won't say anything about that, but it certainly was competitive. But at the top of the table with Nathan Guerra. Nathan, you've always had a ton of insight. I've respected you in this community as somebody you've been paying attention every day for more than 10 years. You got it. It was ultimately your guess at 38,572. That official number, 37,346. Not far off, my friend, like guessing the number of riders in a peloton.
Well, I play, when I was young, I think The Price is Right was on all the time. Like, I think it was like, anytime I played hooky from school or stayed home sick, I would totally just consume The Price is Right. So I definitely give credence to young Nathan hanging out in front of the television. But all joking aside, I think there's a little bit to that with the community that's specific to where I hang out the most might also be the one that is like, what else is going on out there right now? And so I think that have something to do with the tea leaves and being able to read them a little bit. And maybe just kind of seeing the numbers as well with the live, you're always kind of watching the Zwifters nearby and how many are also online at the time, and just kind of judging the past 10 years of riding around the same times and what the feeling was around that number that made me guess a little bit lower.
All right, Shane. Well, you were second place. 39,555 was the number that you threw at us. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things and comments was made that these numbers weren't juiced. There wasn't any real effort by Zwift to maximize a moment. So what do you think about where we're at right now, my friend?
I think I could see it was going to be lower. That's why my prediction was very low ball. Little did I know Nathan would even low ball that again and take the crown from me this year. So congratulations, Nathan. You got that one. But I guess the questions need to be asked, why is Peak lower? Is it Peak that's lower, or is it overall numbers? Because during the day, there's more events to do. The pace partners are there 24/7. You can jump on at any time. Were Peak numbers juiced in the past by just having like a showcase event at a certain time? I think that's around, it's 5 or 4 a.m. my time. I'm in the opposite side of the world, so the numbers happen at different times of the day than everyone else. But I'd like to know why. I'd like to dig into the whys. All we've got is that one number. Is it the spread during the day? There's the same amount of riders, less or more? We don't really know until we can take some more numbers from that or get some more data out of that. But I guess questions need to be asked. Why is that low? Is it similar to, let's just say, Netflix, where are we re-watching the same series over and over again? Do we need some new content? Do we need something a little different? I know the Big Spin was absolutely massive last year. Do we need one of those every month? Or can we move that to a different time of year? I think all these questions will also be asked of Zwift and possibly their investors who are looking at these numbers too. I'm a little concerned, but I think, I think some discussions need to be had about where things are at.
Eric, you and I were not that far off, about 500 away. You came in at 41,500 with your guess. So, yeah, dovetailing into what GP Llama was saying there, it's interesting because this is a snapshot in time that we're talking about. Peak Zwift is just the high watermark that you hit in that one moment. But, there's some other really encouraging news that I've heard recently about, the number of people showing up for things like Tour de Zwift or Base Camp. So no reason to look at this as bad news, right?
Not necessarily. I agree with Shane for sure that we need to be able to look deeper. And the problem is we can't because we aren't Zwift. So we don't actually know those numbers. I would love to see a metric from Zwift called something like total riding hours. How many hours in this day were ridden on Zwift? That's good because that's true Peak Zwift, right? Just looking at the number of riders actively online in the companion app really isn't a perfect picture of activity on the platform. I tend to think that some of it has been spread out, like Shane was talking about, that those hourly big Tour de Zwift events are kind of spreading out the activity, and we're not seeing as much of a peak on Peak Zwift. But there's also other issues for sure. There's the price rise. There's competition from other platforms. So I'm sure Zwift has more information than we do, and they've done a better analysis than we have of what's caused all this. But I would love to know what that analysis said.
On that note, I love the passion that all three of you have shown for Zwift. And people are probably wondering, okay, if you didn't really get the information from Zwift, how do you do it? And Eric, in talking with you before the broadcast, I learned how you did. Shane, I'm curious to hear your technique as well. But Eric, how do you come up with that number?
It's not nearly as good as Shane's technique, I'll tell you that. So my technique, which I perfected a few years ago when we were tracking Peak Zwift, is I open up my iPhone in the companion app and I hit screen record and run it for about an hour during the time when it's going to be Peak Zwift. So I know that I'll get really close because it refreshes every 5 or 10 seconds. And then I don't have to babysit it and watch it, but it's kind of a hacky way of recording without actually doing something much better, which is what Shane does. Off to you, Shane.
Mine is, mine's, I guess, a legacy thing. Those listening who know Linux from 20, 30 years ago, I'm using a cron job, using MRTG to graph things, using a little script to ping the that number that you get in the companion app every 5 minutes. So I've got a little script that emulates the companion app. It logs in, grabs that number and logs off, and then graphs that, stores it in a database. And I've got a little script thing there that just runs around the clock. That's been running for 2.5, nearly 3 years now. So I've got some good trending data. But I let the robots do it for me rather than. But however, having said that, the community are so onto it. I will also get a screenshot when Peak Zwift takes place. Someone will DM me pretty much the same number. So I've got the script running there. It doesn't need to happen, though. It's pretty accurate what the community are looking at and the number being public. But I tell you what, I'd love that number to be public on other platforms too. That would fill in a lot of the gaps.
It would.
Around where indoor cycling as a whole is going. But all we have to go by is one single number. But that one number, we've gotten years and years of Peak Zwift fun out of this and long discussions like this out of just one single number. So I'm glad they've got it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they take that away sometime soon.
I just delegate to the Shane and Eric group chat. That's what I do. Jane uses the bot, Eric uses his recording, and then I know I can just delegate and I wait for them. And I kind of like prod. Hey, what's going on?
Nathan's the smartest of all of us, for sure.
Shane, I'm going to throw this one to you. Exactly when does that moment occur for Peak Zwift? Please don't do it in Australia time.
That's all I have. Look, looking at my private little website that I may have running right about now, I've got to say it in my time because it's the time zone that it's in. It is 5 a.m. on a Tuesday Australian time, which I think is that Monday night UK time. I think it's in, Eric, I think you've posted it where the actual Peak Zwift takes place, the actual peak hour.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 11 a.m. California time.
Which would be dinner time in London, I would say. So that makes sense. And I think we talked about that in the past with Simon. It is early evening in Europe. You've got the lunchtime America crowd going, and then God only knows what you're doing at 4 a.m. in Australia.
But what is interesting, though, is I map the last 7 days, last month, last 3 months, last 6 months, last 12 months. I map it in all different ways. Like, again, it's just one number, but what you can extrapolate from that is amazing. And the trend is fascinating. Year on year, week on week, the actual usage trends per hour almost map identically. So if it's a Saturday, if it's a Sunday, if it's a Monday, if it's a Tuesday, always up on the Tuesdays. Wednesdays dip a little bit, and some days have two bumps or two peaks. That's usually on the weekend. People have more time on the morning and the evening. Sunday's a little bit more peaky than Saturday. People might be outside riding or making up for the week that I haven't reached my goals. Fascinating to see this as a whole.
It's crazy. Wouldn't it be fun, guys, if we could run different data models, like what happens if a huge nor'easter crushes the weather of the northern coast of this or that? But that being said, guys, I want to just move right into, this is some good old-fashioned Zwiftcast talk that we've got going here today. I saw Eric Min on social media highlighting 274,000. I even heard 300,000 recently folks signed up for Tour de Zwift, with 210,000 people doing Zwift Base Camp. So these are going to be some pretty engaged Zwifters that we're talking about. Eric, I'm going to go right to you with that first. You know, racing has had its own unique struggles lately, but it sounds like more folks than ever are just getting on Zwift to ride their hearts out.
There's something about the big tours that just attracts people. It's wild. And it feels like this year, it's even bigger than past years. Maybe just a bit, but every time I log on and I look at the sign up numbers for the Tour de Zwift rides, they're 500, 600, some of them over 1,000 people signed up. And those are hourly rides. That's not like a once a day ride. So huge numbers of people coming through that. Yeah, I mean, I think it compares actually really interestingly. The numbers compare to the Zwift Camp baseline that ended, I think, actually earlier this month. But the similar numbers, higher for Tour de Zwift because it's kind of a more general thing. But Zwift Camp baseline had over 200,000 people who participated in that, more than Zwift Academy. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, big numbers. And I think that speaks to that there is a high level of engagement within Zwift. Now, the question is the actual number of hours being logged total, is that higher?
I do want to jump in on the comparison between Zwift Academy and baseline just a little bit. There is a timing situation a little bit there, I feel like, where Zwift Academy always was making sure to time itself in a way that came through the fall into the winter and didn't happen during more of a peak time, whereas the base camp happened from a later fall into winter time and probably had an easier onboarding.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
And also the branding around Zwift Academy is like, do you want to become a pro? Whereas like the main Zwift audience, I think, didn't feel as intimidated by Basecamp, which is a great offering. I think that's absolutely awesome. But I think as far as the reasons behind that engagement are interesting there.
Good point, Nathan, for sure. So guys, they're really, really excited. TrainerRoad being integrated. This is a big deal. I'm going to go to you first, Shane. Why is this such a big deal? For folks that aren't on TrainerRoad but are on Zwift, I want to look at it from that perspective first, because both of these groups, Zwifting or TrainerRoad, have massive numbers of devotees. So what's happening?
Look, I think what we've got here is the coming together of two tribes that may have been in the past maybe at war a little bit, in a friendly way, of course. But I never thought I'd see the day. I really didn't, because they've always been, I would guess, probably the two most direct competitors to each other. Now, while people say that TrainerRoad's very different to Zwift, and that is true, I think any time that you're taking focus or attention away from somebody and onto another platform or into another experience, they are a competitor. For example, I'd say Netflix is even a competitor to Zwift. Some people get on their trainer, load erg mode and watch Netflix. That doesn't require a Zwift subscription, does it? So it's taking away from Zwift. The same thing with TrainerRoad and vice versa. And as part of both communities, TrainerRoad have a fantastic forum that I'm very active on. They've always been seen as complementary, but very different. And we did see in the past people were manually bringing over TrainerRoad workouts into Zwift and loving the experience. But TrainerRoad are saying, hey, that's our IP. Can you not do that? We also had that thing I think we talked about quite a bit on the Zwiftcast of the past about where Eric Min may have been in Reno, may have been having conversations about a merger, may not have been. Nothing was ever confirmed. But now we're seeing the two come together and hold hands. Absolutely fascinating. I think it's a win for people who are on both platforms. It's going to be fantastic. For people who aren't on or are only on one platform, doesn't really matter. Each platform will still remain existing as it is. That's fine. But what does this mean overall for people who have both? And if you're not logging into TrainerRoad app anymore, that removes the app from the picture. So my question has always been, now this is a deeper one for TrainerRoad to ask, I guess, or to answer, I guess, is does that change the subscription model of TrainerRoad? Not having that overhead of having to support the app for certain users. It's going to be an interesting one to see what users request or expect of the sort of the combined service if they use both. I think it's fantastic, though. I like to see things coming into Zwift as the workout player, and also some of the modifications that has forced Zwift to make to the workout player as well. There's been some technical problems or technical limitations, I guess, of that 5-watt averaging for workouts, which has now been removed for this. I think it's going to be quite popular, but let's see where it lands in the community once it's announced and starts rolling out.
Before I throw it to Nathan and ask some technical questions, I'm going to go to you, Eric. This seems like a win-win to me. I was struggling talking to you earlier today about trying to find an analogy, but maybe it's chocolate and peanut butter, right? They both are great on their own, but together works a little better. What do you think? Did I find the analogy that works, my friend?
I love chocolate. I love peanut butter. I love TrainerRoad and I love Zwift. So yes, I'm going with it, Dave. Chocolate and peanut butter.
Nice. So yeah, is this a good sign for anybody in this space that they're able to work this out?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I think is really important to call out here is people on PC and Mac have been kind of hacking the ability to use TrainerRoad and Zwift concurrently. We've been doing that for years. You just have 2 ant sticks or 2 different connections. But what this does is this opens up TrainerRoad plus Zwift to Apple TV users, iPhone users, people who didn't have a way to run both of those, to easily access and execute their TrainerRoad workouts on those other platforms. And those platforms are hugely popular on Zwift. Apple TV, last I heard, was the number one device that Zwifters use. So I think it's a huge win in that way.
Nathan, it's interesting because you live in such a unique space at the very high end, as far as I'm concerned, of Zwifting with what's going on in racing. And I mean, from what I've learned from you, it would not make sense to race on Apple. There's better ways to do it. When you look at what you've learned about back-end API and all of these things, how complicated is it to be able to just link something like TrainerRoad to Zwift?
Well, I think it's mainly, do we want to put the resources into being able to communicate with each other? Essentially, having this API integration is, can our two platforms talk to each other and send what we call calls to each other to get information from each other? That's really what it comes down to. And then putting the resources into being able to decipher the language that is being communicated between the two. And so, one box of software is trying to say, hey, I'm going to send over whatever information that you're looking for from me, and vice versa. The other box of software is saying, okay, hey, I'm going to send that information you're asking for back. And so it really just comes down to whether or not you want to share. There is some resource and probably planning and timing and all that kind of stuff that will go into developing in the background. And you're asking a team of devs or a few devs to be like, hey, you need to go put some time into putting together this access point. It's an access point. And so, that's going to take a little bit, but I think it's mainly like is that a priority? I think that's mainly what this comes down to, and that we're seeing with the onboarding of this training universe, the training workouts focus is where this has been with the onboarding of API integrations, that's the main place that Zwift wants to be roads for, and let some other people who already have a really big user group that already have their workouts somewhere saying, look, I just want to integrate what I already know and I already trust my workouts. I don't want to go digging through what you've got over there. You might have some really cool content there, but I like this content over here. Can I just use it on your platform? Because I'd like to use your platform. And serving both of those desires easily is a win-win, and it's going to keep everybody happy, rather than causing that tension in the user to like, do I go here or do I go there? You got a common ground that everybody can be happy.
Go ahead, Shane.
Best of both worlds, as I see it. So I agree with Nathan there. I think we can all agree that the Zwift workout library is a little stale, but also isn't really, well, I was going to say isn't backed by science. Of course it is. They have all the algorithms and all the trends are already there. But TrainerRoad have really gone deep into their library, the AI, FTP auto detection, the readiness and things like that. So all the smarts, this is what's been missing from Zwift in the training. And I'm talking 2024, 2025 level training plans and coaching plans. That's what this brings into Zwift, which is a missing piece of the puzzle that Zwift haven't had for quite some time. So yeah, best of both worlds for this. So I'm really interested to see how it integrates. And then into the analytics side of things too. TrainerRoad have some great analytics on the web. I use it for my overall tracking actually for the last 2 or 3 years. It's just that little trend line of, where am I at overall? So being able to integrate that and bringing in all rides to that as well, which I think we should be seeing from all platforms. And that is, seeing your overall athlete readiness state to train. That's something that will be brought in via the TrainerRoad integration, because they see all rides once you've linked that to your Garmin or your Element or your Hammerhead, etc. So, I think this is just a first step into some bigger things coming in 2025.
To all three of you, who do you think is Zwift's real competitor out there? I mean, is it Peloton? Is it the other apps providing this? Is it, as you said, Netflix? Is it Slovenly Living? Who is it, Eric? I'll start with you.
I really like Slovenly Living. I think that's a great sheer laziness. If we could just if Zwift could just find a way to carve off some of the market share of the sheer lazy population, they could really grow their customer base.
Nathan, who is Zwift's main competitor?
Look, this one's hard, and I'm going to cheat a little bit on this one because I've said in the past that Zwift brought cycling online. They are the Facebook of cycling. Okay. They are. And so I think everyone, honestly, I think there's so many different, as Shane mentioned, Netflix being something someone did when they were staring at the wall. I used to play video games and literally would play Dota and World of Warcraft while staring at the wall. I think that there's a lot of solutions to indoor cycling. And if anyone's like, well, I'm kind of bored or I need to find something, they're going to find something that interests them, and tapping into those interests. There's so wide variety. Like on my Instagram, I had spin classes coming up because they know that I'm like, I haven't done spin class for 20 years, but there's a lot of different things in the indoor space, and Zwift have a lot of targets to there's a lot of different things that they have to shoot at, and prioritization, I think, is a thing. I remember them saying that over and over again at Zwift Week was I could even see it. How many different boxes do we have to look at here? What do we need to prioritize? And we got to focus on our roadmap and not get distracted. So, and you see them doing that, and they're definitely delivering on that goal of theirs. But I know I'm cheating. You would think that I'm going to say the racing crew here, whatever. And I do think that is a reality. But if I'm being honest and stepping back from my own desires and what the things I would like to see grow, I think they got a lot of different places to shoot at because they are the Facebook of cycling.
All right, GP Llama, you're on the spot here. You triggered this thought in my mind.
I know you're after a straight shooter answer of something like, definitely My Whoosh is the biggest competitor, or Indy Velo, which has now gone to Training Peaks Virtual or something like that. But look, I think the bigger picture is Zwift's biggest competitor is people just not choosing to ride a bike. It is expensive to ride a bike. Prices are rising. We've seen that across the board. It's not, even though it is an accessible sport at a very, very basic level, at a competitive level, cycling is expensive. And I think that's probably the biggest competitor. People choosing to buy a pair of soccer boots or football boots and go and kick a ball or bounce a basketball or put on a pair of running shoes, which is so much more accessible than cycling. So I think Zwift already know this. I mean, look at the Zwift ride in the background of a lot of our shots we've got here as we record. That is a pathway to making this more accessible and giving people the option to just jump on and ride within 5 minutes. If it took more than 5 minutes to get ready for a run, I don't think running would be as popular. We need to reduce that time. So just people choosing not to ride a bike and choosing alternative sports.
Hey guys, thanks a ton for your time.
Ride on.
I loved that chat, Dave. I know we say lol a lot, but I was laughing out loud. I firstly don't think I've ever seen The Price is Right, so I think I need to go back to the archives on that. But I also love the fact that I was speaking to you, wasn't I, a few weeks ago around Peak Zwift and saying, how do Eric and Shane do it? Do they sit 24 hours a day watching the companion app? Because I couldn't work out how they were doing it, but you did. You got the lowdown from them.
Yeah, I had to ask after you asked me. I was like, wow, I have no idea. So sometimes it's just good old-fashioned elbow grease and hard work, and sometimes it's ingenuity from those guys, that's for sure. I also highly doubt that Nathan Guerra has ever watched an episode of The Price is Right. If there was a guy who did not sit, so it is your classic mid-morning American old school. I don't even think it's probably as popular as it used to be by any stretch, but just a good old-fashioned game show. That's for sure. It's one of the OG ones.
Next up, we can't go any further without talking about the wonderful Sir Chris Hoy and the launch of Tour de Force. In 2024, our friend and Olympic cycling legend Chris shared the news of his diagnosis of stage 4 prostate cancer. Since then, he's been doing an incredible job raising awareness, encouraging more men to get checked, and helping to normalize conversations about cancer and getting support. He says, it's really important for me to shine a spotlight on what stage 4 cancer diagnosis can look like and demonstrate that it is possible to live well and lead a happy life alongside this devastating diagnosis. Now, Chris has genuinely always inspired me since I first met him about 2 decades ago, actually, but he's further changed my perspective and undoubtedly that of so many people. And I've never read a book so quickly as I did his. Now, Zwift are putting on weekly and monthly rides where you can join Chris in the lead up to the in-person event. And Dave, this is absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. You know, I've never been lucky enough to meet Sir Chris Hoy. Huge fan. I know a lot of folks like Eric Schlange, who you'll hear in this episode. We've all had conversations about what a cool opportunity it's going to be to get to meet him at Zwift Community Live. But you're absolutely right. This is the kind of thing where Zwift really shines. There's no question that community is a big strength, and having a support group around you, that's kind of what community does, for sure, especially during a major health crisis. And this would certainly qualify as that at the very highest level. So, you know, the thing I'd add to that, here in the States, we've had Davis Finney dealing with Parkinson's. His diagnosis goes back to the year 2000. So that's 25 years now, Rebecca. And the parallel that I see there is one of the things that Davis talked about in the early years with his foundation, the Davis Finney Foundation, and still continues to, is working on quality of life while you're dealing with having Parkinson's. There's some things that are out of your control. And in this case, it's a stage 4 cancer diagnosis for Sir Chris. And that's not going to be just wished away, but you can control how you live your life, the positivity that you bring, the energy that you bring to every morning when you start your day. And there's so much that I can learn from someone like Chris, even not dealing with the cancer diagnosis at this moment, but certainly always aware that that could be around the corner for anybody. And part of that message is get tested. So I think it hits on so many things, right? With respect to Chris, I should have gone and gotten tested a long time ago, but this is something that'll motivate me to go get that done. And yeah, it just really works. And I'm always proud of our community, the way they step up during, like, you watch, Rebecca, during these rides. it'll bring you to a tear when you start seeing the messaging that'll be going back and forth, the chats and people telling their stories, and it's going to be awesome.
Well, Chris, as you say, will also be at Zwift Community Live, and we'll be bringing you lots of lovely content from there in April.
Ride on.
Yeah, we had so much going on, Rebecca, whether it was TrainerRoad, all kinds of things. But I had a chance to talk with Eric Schlange specifically about the women's portal that they've got going on there at Zwift Insider and the tiny races. A lot going on.
Ride on.
Zwift Insider Women's Racing Portal. Eric Schlange, that sounds like a fancy way to make racing accessible for women, which is the name of the game, I would think. How's it been going with the portal?
It's been good. We've had it up now for over a year, and really all I do is host it. The ladies are the ones who are really producing the content, and they're doing just a killer job. So if you go to Zwift Insider and just click women at the top, you'll find the portal. So it's linked really prominently, gives ladies really direct info about how to join a team, what teams are available, why you should race, what upcoming races there are. It's kind of the one-stop shop for women's racing on Zwift.
The biggest hurdles that you see them having to overcome with the sport. When you got into racing, it was showing up, 10 years ago, completely different game. So I'm not sure how well you can relate to what it's like to be brand new on Zwift, but it can be a little overwhelming, I would say.
Yeah, I think ladies, when it comes to Zwift racing in particular, probably the biggest hurdle is just the lack of numbers. I mean, a race with two people isn't much of a race, although we are cyclists, so of course that is a race. But it's not like us dudes that have all these races that are available all the time that have 30, 40, 100 people in them. If you want to race just with other ladies, and a lot of ladies do, there's the numbers are smaller. It's I know Eric Min has mentioned it's around 10%. Like the number of women racing is about 10% of what the number of men are. So I think that's the biggest issue.
What advice would you give to, let's just say, a B, even that, let's just go C level, 55-year-old woman who decides that she wants to race for the first time, and she's on a smart trainer and has her act together with her Zwift account and all of that, but she's really just looking to, where do I find a group of women somewhat like me who I can race with? What's your advice to her?
I would say I'm not any more qualified than any other dude to give advice to ladies racing. So instead, I will defer to, we run a weekly article series that's been going for over a year now, where we have interviews with a single female racer, a new one every week. And one of the questions that's asked in every one of those articles is, what would you say to a woman who's interested in racing for the first time? And I feel like every single one of those posts, the person interviewed says, just give it a go. It's going to be more fun than you thought. You're going to be pushed to your limit, and the start's hard. So know that you have to go hard at the beginning. But they all just say, just do it. The women's racing community has a totally different feel to it than the men's racing. Women's racing is much more supportive, kind of a, hey, we all are in this together. You're all amazing. That sort of a thing, where guys are just much more competitive and kind of at each other's throats. So I think you just jump in and give it a go, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the supportive atmosphere and what a great workout you get.
So what kind of information are people looking for the most at the racing portal?
That's a good question. Probably they're looking for what events are coming up, because there aren't as many women-only races happening, and you can't just open up the companion app and find 10 races happening in the next couple of hours that are just for ladies. So they're looking for that kind of schedule. And there is a link right on that page to the women's event calendar that pulls up some of those key events.
It's interesting. We talk so much about inspiring and what the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift has done to inspire, young women and kids to race. But there's going to be that 75-year-old woman that's inspired to race as well. I mean, I think it's really interesting, the huge spectrum of folks that when you look at who's being inspired out there. I mean, even yourself, I would think, was inspired by Tour de France Femme avec Zwift last summer.
Oh, absolutely. It was an amazing race. I would say, to tag on to that, Dave, that women, especially older women who might be intimidated jumping into an outdoor race, especially if they've never raced before, isn't Zwift just the perfect venue for that? You don't have to worry about crashing, what other riders are going to do. You can just go on there and push yourself as hard as you want to push yourself and enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. I think Zwift is very accessible when it comes to racing.
I think you make a really great point there. I really do. You know, the accessibility to the racing and for time-crunched people as well. So I'm going to move right in while we have you. I always appreciate your time, Eric, as tiny races have really become a thing. I'm seeing more and more people talking about it. I love the format for people who have never done it. I'm not even going to look for your quick elevator pitch. It's really straight ahead. It's 4 races in an hour. You're looking to get people a pretty quick turnaround then, if you think about it. The races aren't that long, but it's 5 minutes typically from when you finish until you're basically into start mode again. What have the feedback you've gotten, what have people loved the most about tiny races?
I think what people like the most is that it's a VO2 workout that isn't a VO2 workout. And I think all of us racers, cyclists know that VO2 power is so important, especially if you're a Zwift racer. Having that really strong 3 to 5 minute power is important, but nobody likes doing VO2 workouts. There's 3 to 5 minute basically max effort intervals and having to do 4 or 5 of them in your hour-long workout. They're just no fun. Tiny races basically let you knock out that VO2 workout, but in the context of a race.
It's the usual suspects thing, right? The greatest trick the devil ever played was telling people he never existed, right? Yes. The same thing here. You don't know that you're getting this crazy good workout because of the fun of what cycling is all about, and racing against, as we've joked about many times. It just takes 2 people to turn it into a race. So they're based on points. I like that as well. So you kind of get that instant feedback, instant gratification as well, which is nice. That's one of the things that, even though we struggle with results sometimes in esports, it's a lot better than in real life. And to be able to wrap up your hour, right? Typically they run 3 times during a day, 3 different batches of racing.
Yeah, so they're on Saturdays, and there's 3 different, I call them zones. So there's zone 1, 2, and 3. One's kind of a good time for Europeans. The zone 2 is kind of good for Americans. Zone 3 is kind of good for Australians and Americans. So yeah, they're 6 hours apart, I think, each of the zones.
Which zone sees the biggest turnout?
1 and 2 for sure. 3 is definitely smaller. They kind of trade off, zone 1 and zone 2. They're really close. Like last week, I know I looked and there was about 1,300 to 1,400 events completed in each of those zones. So you have to realize every racer is doing 4 races. So if you had 1,200 completions, that means there's probably about 400 racers involved, 300 racers involved, and they're each doing 4 races. So that adds up to 1,200 total races completed in that block. But yeah, right. This time of year, they're seeing 1,400 of those completions in each of those zones.
Yeah, Danny Enzo racing. I'm a big fan of that guy. Really enjoy his energy. How did that come to be that he created that video for you? And that's the kind of thing, Eric, you tell me, maybe I'll have to check back in, but do you see another 100 extra folks show up next Saturday because of Danny's video?
I don't know. I didn't notice a measurable uptick. But I mean, it certainly isn't going to hurt. How did I come across Danny? I was just scrolling through TikTok one day, and this was probably over a year ago. And the amazing powers behind the TikTok algorithm decided I was interested in Zwift and popped up Danny. And I immediately loved, and you know this because you've interacted with him too. Like, he's got this magnetic personality, this disarming personality that says, I'm not a pro rider. I'm just having fun, getting in a good workout. and just a super accessible guy. And I immediately thought this guy's going to go places when it comes to creating Zwift videos. He's fun.
You talk about fun, and one thing that isn't fun is having your race disrupted by a Z Power Ranger. Things have changed, haven't they? Zwift racing score and just mindset in general. How's it been keeping the racing on the up and up and keeping the fun high with the complaining low?
Yeah, the Z Power thing, I mean, it's been a couple of years now when Zwift added hardware requirements in there. So now you can make it so that if you're on Z Power, which is just means you're on a dumb trainer, we can bar you from entering the race. And most races nowadays do that. They require a smart trainer or a power meter in order to race. And I think that's a pretty low minimum bar. Most riders, the vast majority of people I see on Zwift are on smart trainers, and Z Power is so inaccurate that it doesn't seem fair to have a race with 100 riders in it, and one guy on Z Power can go off the front holding 400 watts without even trying and kind of blow the thing up. So that's going well. That kind of hardware enforcement's going well. Zwift Racing Score, I think, is doing pretty well. There were some fits and starts when it was first released, some complaints about different issues, but at least for me in my tiny race context, I'm really not seeing many complaints when it comes to Zwift Racing Score and the categories that are created by those. I get to use one of the cool things about the Racing Score is you can break up the category bands into custom bands. And I do that with the tiny races. So I adjust those bands to kind of try to keep pack sizes roughly equal. And that means that when you join a tiny race, the people you're racing against may not be the people you race against in some other event on Zwift because the bands are different. And I think that's a good thing. The one thing Zwift hasn't quite buttoned down yet, even though they're working on it, is what you might call pen enforcement. And that is to make sure that when people join a pen, that they have a racing score that would allow them to be in that pen. And Zwift has never had that sort of enforcement. They've always just checked it when you sign up for the event. The problem with that is when you're doing 4 back-to-back races, tiny races in an hour, you might start at one racing score, blow up the race, get a great score, finish first, upgrade your score, and now you're no longer qualified for the category that you had already signed up for, and you shouldn't be racing in it. But Zwift isn't enforcing that. They're saying, "Oh, you already signed up for that event 3 days ago. We're going to let you into the category you originally signed up for." But that's not fair if you signed up for what was effectively too low of a category. So Zwift says they're fixing that. This is one of those. Another example. There's been several examples where the tiny races have kind of pushed Zwift to improve their whole racing setup because they're kind of an edge case the way they work. Packing 4 races into an hour, but they're working on it.
More management required for the lower level racers, the intro level racers, versus the very, very high end of the racing. Or let's even split it into 3 different groups. Or is it the middle guy and woman out there racing that require the most attention?
That's a good question. I don't see a really big difference between the high and the low. I think if I had to pick one, it would be the lower category racers. And that's because what you're seeing is, because of the way Zwift is doing Zwift Racing Score, you've got some riders who haven't raced in a while and they're showing up and their score is lower. It's artificially low. So they end up joining races and kind of blowing up the races because they really should have been classified higher. Zwift should have looked at their historic power.
This is the former pro triathlete who USA Cycling says you're a Cat 5, and he shows up and wins his first Cat 5 race by 18 minutes, right? Same thing.
Yeah. And everyone says, "Hey, USA Cycling, can't you look and see that he was a former pro triathlete 3 years ago and not make him a Cat 5? But they have policies and they follow the policies. So similar with Zwift, I think Zwift will improve in this area because they've got all the data. They should be able to look at the past year, past 2 years. And if it's a Zwifter who's been around a while, they should be able to seed them a little bit better. But that's a pretty minor thing. I'm not seeing a lot of that, but if I had to pick one, I'd say that's what I see.
Your demographic, who's showing up and doing these races? It's global. I get that. But if you had to kind of pin down where you're finding success, who is it? Who's doing these tiny races the most?
I would group it into two kind of seemingly opposite groups. The first one is, I would call them serious racers. I actually just looked today, and the top 10 ranked riders on Zwift Power, of the top 10 ranked riders, 7 of them have completed tiny races in the last couple of weeks. So that tells you something. It tells you that it's a good place to get your rankings boosted for sure. But it also tells you there's some really strong competition at the kind of elite level. But also just really serious racers in the B category, the C category, riders who really want to push themselves either to boost their rankings or because they know it's a really good workout. Either way, I'd call them serious racers. The other group I would say that's kind of on the opposite end of that are the lower category racers, call them D's and E's. And I think they like the idea of tiny races because they like the idea of a race that only takes 10 or 15 minutes. Some of them don't complete all 4 races, and that's okay. It's okay to do 1 or 2 or 3 and then bow out because you're too tired. So I think they like the idea that they're not committing to a 45-minute long effort and they can pull the plug if they need to.
I love it how the answer can be so diverse, right? They're successful because they're so incredibly intense, and they're also successful because they're so incredibly relaxed at the same time, depending on who you are. Well, Eric Schlange, keep up the good work. We'll always be checking in from all of us at the Zwiftcast. Eric, thanks a lot for your time.
Always a pleasure, Dave. See you out there.
And finally, Dave, you sat down with the game-changing 65-year-old Elaine Montoya of the Owls, the acronym for Older Women in Lycra, which I absolutely love. Let's hear that chat now.
Ride on.
Hello and welcome to Elaine Montoya. Elaine, I know we're finding in Albuquerque. I assume it's a cold day. We're right here in the sweet spot of winter. But thanks for joining us on the Zwiftcast, Elaine. First off, just how are you?
Fantastic, Dave. How you doing today? My pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Well, hey, listen, we were really excited to have you. It's our pleasure. I saw on social media, it was maybe a week ago or so. Again, we're talking mid-January here. But there was a really neat story about you and the Owls. I wouldn't even say reuniting. It was uniting in person for the first time. We're going to hear a lot more about that in this interview. Lots of folks are going to be aware already. That piece was super popular, Elaine. I noticed tons of eyeballs were on that. But Owls is Older Women in Lycra. That's the acronym. We've known you for years. Nathan and I really enjoyed. You actually became part of the family. You didn't just show up on our radar. We've been big fans for a long time. It's no secret. And actually, how old are you? First off, let's just get that elephant out of the corner or whatever the saying is.
It's not an elephant at all. I am proud to be 65 years old.
And what is the average age of an owl?
Okay, so I'll kind of get into that a little bit as we get along the way, because we have different levels of owls, actually. But for Team Owl, we are all women who are 65 to 80 years old, and that's our Grandmasters TTT racing team. We do have a few other owl teams that I can get into that start at age 50.
Super welcoming club for any woman over 50. And I bet you if a 48-year-old showed up and was cool, you're not going to throw her out. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You know, I got to be honest. We do try to stick to UCI age 50 and older because there's a real need for that niche. And we're inspiring the younger generation. We're inspiring them to join us when they're old enough. They love getting messages from us saying, come back in a few years when you're old enough.
I love it. I really do. Let's talk size and scope here. First off, the first time that you guys showed up at a team time trial, let's build that timeline here, Elaine. the first time we could say we had an official Owls team racing? My guess is 2020.
That's a very good guess. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory because I think it's important to how this all came about. So I started, I've been cycling. I'd been a recreational cyclist for years, not a competitive cyclist. And as I got older, I became more of a fair weather rider. And even though we have a lot of sunshine here in Albuquerque, we're at a mile high and the winters are cold. So in 2019, around Thanksgiving, I decided I wanted to give indoor cycling a go, bought a trainers with membership, and the rest was history. It was not, I'm like I said, I was a recreational cyclist. So my very first competition was a Tour de Zwift, which used to have races. And my first comment after racing one was, I am totally out of my league.
But I do want to note, you are in pre-COVID here for this story. So, 2019, there's a big difference, I think, in a lot of ways. So you found Zwift there in New Mexico, 2019. Then you jumped in and did, obviously, it wasn't a team time. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. It wasn't a team time trial, was it? It was Tour de Zwift.
I did Tour de Zwift and did, various races and stuff throughout the year. And by November of 2019, I had joined a team. I was on Cryogen and I started racing TTT. And it was a blast. But I saw that there was a real need for a team specifically for women. So in February of 2020, I decided to start a Zwift team. And initially it was for women of all ages, not just older women. And we had multiple TTT teams with only one team, Team Gold, specifically for women age 60 and over. And that was the team that I raced on. So I would actively look on Zwift Companion and Zwift Power for women age 60 plus who were a good fit. And that's pretty much how I found each member of our Grandmasters Team L.
Look, I'm going to give you a ton of credit, Elaine. I don't know what you do. Actually, I'm going to ask, what do you do for a living? Because that's a real go-getter, being proactive like that. Not just saying, hey, I'm this team, I'm looking for women, but you were kind of headhunting out there for Owls.
I was definitely headhunting. And just by, I got to say it was luck that I found all of the riders who we did race together in Long Beach. Every single one of them I found just by researching and looking for them on Zwift. We, like I said, we had a whole lot of other teammates. But that's when the younger women who were racing with us, it was in a short time that I realized how important it was for women who are UCI age 60 and older to experience team time trial. It was empowering. Dave, I'm not sure if you're aware, but by the time most women reach age 60, we become invisible in society. Studies reveal that a whopping 70% of women feel invisible starting around age 52. And I saw that what I was doing was helping older women be seen. So at that point, I restructured our Zwift team to be specifically for women age 60 and older. And that was the start of Team Owl, God didn't know this, and you probably know this from WTR, the very first ever 60s plus Grandmasters women's team.
That is awesome. And again, to Nathan's credit, he really identified what you women were doing right away. And did you feel a bump from at that time it was Zwift Community Live, now Zwift Live. Did you feel a bump from that coverage? Did more women see it?
We definitely did. It was interesting what led up to that, because when we started racing TTT, it was a blast for all of us. And we kind of used the same tactics that all the other TTT teams did, which was basically you just go out, race hard, do it all, no real tactics. But one of the things that I noticed when we were doing this was on our other teams that we had, our younger teams, because we still hadn't totally transitioned yet, the ones who made it to the Platinum League, it was amazing. They had excitement. They felt good about themselves. And I wanted to make sure that Team Owl, our Grandmasters team, had the same experience. But the question was, how could we realistically beat teams half our age or even a third our age? And that's where I came up with some stuff about how to race wise.
Isn't it? I truly think that, one, that's such a great carrot to chase with athletics is having goals. And, you only get better, Elaine, right, if you go up against folks that are a little bit better than you, because it's sort of one of those truisms out there. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I think you've done a really great job of explaining the ethos of the Owls. And I would underline and emphasize, if you're a woman over 50 and looking for like-minded folks that have a lot of fun on Zwift, then come find Elaine. Back in November, you had a gathering of Owls. First off, who made that group? Was it all the original team? How well did we do with keeping everyone around, I guess is the best way to put that. So we go to Long Beach. You meet some of your teammates for the first time in person. Elaine, that had to be pretty overwhelming. I would, even for a person with the life experience that you've had, I can't really think of anything that would compare to for me in my life. So can you take me through sort of the who organized it? How did you even get the invite to Zwift HQ? And how was the turnout?
Oh, it was fantastic. I got to say, the bond that we've made through racing together weekly on Zwift is nothing short of remarkable. And it's always been a dream of ours to meet each other in real life. We often talked about it after Discord races. So, some on Team Al can no longer ride outdoors due to injury. And so I had always told them if we were ever able to race in real life in a meetup, I'd find a local cycling gym so that we could all race TT to get together. So last summer, Becky and I were doing a post-race ride with Pam, one of our teammates from New Zealand, and asked if she ever came to the United States to visit family. And that's when she told us she was planning a visit for November. And I knew that this was our opportunity to make this happen, so I jumped on it. And as luck had it, her family lives in Long Beach. Yes, the same place as Zwift headquarters. And so I knew I had found a venue. Yeah, I knew I had found a venue where we could race together in real life. So I quickly emailed Kate at Zwift, and I presented her with my ask. I said, could Team Al race together in real life at Zwift headquarters in their Zwift pain cave? And her answer was a resounding yes. So she made it happen. And long story short, it was nothing short of a life-changing experience.
I want to learn more, but first, I'm just going to, for folks who listen to the podcast, you've heard Kate before. That's Kate Verno. I love that. So it sounded like it was off to a really positive start. That's for sure. So how many of the original Owls? Was the original Owl group 6 women? That's what it took basically to make a team time trial team, but it might have been smaller or larger.
We have been 6 the majority of the time. We did have 8 team members at one point, but for the past year, we've been at 6 riders, and all 6 made it to Zwift headquarters, coming from as far as New Zealand and the UK.
Wow. So let's give them all a shout out here.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So let's see if I can do it. I have to decide if I do it alphabetically or by age. So I think I'll do it by age in reverse. Okay. Our oldest teammate, and I know you're aware of her, Dave, is Wendy Skeen from Colorado, who has won tons and tons of USAC races.
Legend. Absolute legend. Are we giving ages or not?
Wendy is 80 years old, our oldest Owl at age 80. And I remember when you were... and I remember when you were commentating with one of the WTRL rides, you said that you wanted to race mountain bike with her in Colorado.
I still do. I think that I might have said ride, though, because I don't want to. She would drop me like a bad habit if we were racing. I'm not even going to pretend.
Well, I think we should make that happen. I think it'd be a blast.
Well,
I think that needs to get
Owls too. With Dave somehow squeezed his way into the picture.
That's right.
Okay.
Next rider is Maria.
By the way, we're not naming you. So you're one of the 6.
I'm one of the 6. I'm 65. Maria from Northern Ireland. Maria Shannon is 72. Amazing rider. She's one of our stronger riders on the team. Our team kind of is divided into 2 halves, and Maria's one of the stronger riders on the team. Next rider up, let me think here, would be Becky Padilla, who is 69. And then...
Becky's an American, correct?
Becky is also, yes, she's right here in Albuquerque with me. Yeah, and she's age 69. And then the next rider would be Arlene Salcedo, who is in Florida, and she is 68. Then Pam Morris in New Zealand, who is 67. Hope I'm getting all my numbers right here. I don't have them right in front of me.
I think you're close on the, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's it. That's the 6 of us.
So was it as kind of like, did you cry when you met them? I mean, you don't seem like the crying type. I am, sadly. I'm a super emotional guy.
I am totally the crying type. So I got to say that a couple of us had met prior to this through different races or meetups, but most of us hadn't met till to there. And I got to say the very first meetup of Another Owl that stood out to me the most was I was in the lobby in the hotel checking in, and I knew my teammate Maria Shannon had arrived from the UK, had arrived from Northern Ireland, and would be getting to the hotel soon, but I didn't know where she was at. And I'm standing there checking in, and I'm asking the people if she's arrived yet, and they're like, no, she hasn't checked in yet. And Becky's like, look at that cab out there. And there was this cab and 2 people getting out of it. And I was like, I think that's her. You got to know, we've seen each other on Zoom, but we haven't seen each other. Unreal. I mean, if you would have filmed that, the emotion between the 2 of us was unreal. It meant all the world to both of us.
They say secret sauce, Elaine, of Zwift is that community. But to me, it's more than half of what keeps me coming back time and time again, for sure.
Yeah, I encourage anybody who is on Zwift. I've met people on Zwift who aren't with a team. Get with a team. It makes all the difference in the world.
Connect. It's worth it. You really do find, and I do think that Martin and WTRL, that concept about having that in a subgroup within that huge ecosystem that's your team navigating through WTRL, it brings you closer together for sure, and a very special way to just kind of live your life.
Oh, it does. And Dave, I think you're probably aware, and this kind of, I think, led to a lot of this. We in this last week, we've experienced a ton of growth. And this is really based on Zwift's Instagram video that they posted, which as of this morning has 5,973 likes.
Well, and that's incredible. I think that would qualify as viral, to tell you the truth. Life is about these moments, and they can be catalysts for other moments. And this will be a very nice boost for the Owls, I'm sure, through the next few months, no doubt. Wanted to go back, though, a little bit and ask what your opinions are. We were talking about the Tour of California, which then I was like, listen, Elaine, we got to start recording. You're just too fun to talk to. And this isn't really Tour of California. This is more Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. From Europe, I mean, if you were going to the ATOC in 2012, you're a true bike racing fan. You showed up at one stage. That takes you to, a lot different than just tuning in on TV every now and then. And so credit where it's due there. But how, from your perspective, seeing something like Tour de France Femme avec Zwift happening, being a woman, being a big-time Zwifter, you're part of our family. Did that seem as cool as I would hope it would to you? I mean, you're in your 30s, or 1984 was when they first had an Olympic road race for women. That's insane that it took until 84 for that to happen. So what are your thoughts on Tour de France Femme avec Zwift? About time?
Oh, definitely. And so here's where we do what we do in on our team a lot. We do a hoot, a shout out. And this is to Kate. Kate made that happen. Kate made the Tour de France Femmes happen. And it wasn't a reality in my time. It wasn't something that was even possible. There were women who did race in the early years, as we know. It wasn't what it is now. She's the key to women being seen. And the Tour de France Femmes is the key for women being seen, and the women actually finally being visible, being treated as equals, and as exciting. And I got to say, Dave, I am more excited to watch the women's Tour de France than the men's.
Listen, right now, Elaine, the women's Tour Down Under was more exciting than the men's Tour Down Under. Women's racing is just monster. It's where it's at. There's no question. So shout out to Kate. That's for sure. Every movement needs a champion, for sure. And Kate has really become that for women's racing. You know why? I think a lot of times, Elaine, she's smart and she's fun. She has a sense of humor, but she's also tough. She's not a pushover, and she knows what the right thing to do is.
She's good at what she does.
She might make a good owl in a few years here.
It's funny because she definitely could make a good owl in a few years.
Young.
And we've talked to Leah about that too. Leah, who is now, I think, 46. So in about 4 more years,
Leah, I think you're talking about, right?
That's right. She'll be able to be an owl.
Leah's another one of our all-time favorites, that's for sure. So, all right, great. We've touched on a lot of things here, and I really appreciate your time. The owls are very easy to find, but what's the best way to contact you, Elaine?
I think the best way to get a hold of us is either through our Zwift Companion, Now, Zwift Companion isn't the ideal app, so check out our website at owl.bike. I want to talk a little bit about that. Owl.bike was something that Becky and I decided to launch as an organization. And the main purpose was to have an online presence to educate women and to teach them about how to escape invisibility and be seen. But it was also to generate some income. So hopefully we could expand our mission. Yeah, we launched a store selling team male jerseys, coffee, and other male merch. But to be honest with you, it's just a trickle. It's not enough to sustain our mission. So unfortunately, I'm not in a financial position to stop working. So I'm currently looking for ways to fund Bike, whether it's through sponsorships or grants. There's a real need here, and I would love to be able to commit the time to this project that it deserves.
All right. Well, then I'm just going to put that invite out there. Even a symbolic show of support goes a long, long way. So please, everybody, Elaine is doing some good stuff out there. And if you're a woman over 50, don't be shy.
And just like that, that's all we've got time for. But we will be back again in 2 weeks with the first of 2 special episodes to mark and celebrate Women's History Month. You'll be able to listen along with our podcast rides and discover an exclusive unlock. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, from me, Dave, and the whole team behind the scenes, it's bye-bye for now.